Piotr Sarnacki, who is going to talk about Rails.
Thank you. Good morning, and how are you? So, I'm Piotr Sarnacki, and I'm Dragus on internet, so you can follow me on Twitter or GitHub or something like that. And today I will talk about Rails, past, present, and future. And I will unfortunately not show any drunk people or eating people, so you will probably not be so entertained as at Nick's talk, but coincidentally, I will talk about some things that are a bit related to his talk, so I think it will play nice. So I will start with the past, and how was Rails before 3.0? I would say that it was kind of nice framework, and it was embracing convention over configuration, so you didn't have to make all those nonsense choices before you started writing your apps. And it had some cool APIs, some concepts like router, and of course, really cool feature, mass assignment, killer feature, as you already know. But what if code quality in framework? So it was complete chaos. No architecture, monkey patches flying around the entire code base. Action Mailer was duplicating a lot of stuff from controllers, like rendering partials, helpers. All of that stuff was duplicated between code bases. And don't even get me started on Active Record, because Active Record makes Action Mailer look good. And of course, I'm a bit exaggerating, but you get the point. And the really bad consequence of all of this is that as we use a lot of plugins in Rails, when you upgrade Rails version, everything breaks. So it was kind of like that in Rails 2 point something times when there was no public API and such stuff. But let's leave this for a moment now and talk about something that was an answer to that, and it was MERB. And it had better architecture, it was faster, it had public plugins API, and many other stuff that you already know, so I will not talk about it. And the point of talking about it is that suddenly, boom, there was MERB and Rails merge, and we got something that is something like Rails, but different. And I think that merge is actually not so good word to describe it, because it was not really merge, but rather something like a rewrite or refactoring. And lately, there is a lot of posts that are talking about this refactoring or rewrite, and there is a lot of misconceptions about what should it be and if it was good or not. So I wanted to say a few words about that. Yeah. And I found a post by Yehuda Katz, who started this thing. And he told about a few things that he wanted to do with Rails 3. And the first thing was modularity. By the way, can you see this? Okay, these slides well? Yeah, I don't have photos, so. Yeah, so the first thing was modularity in a way, in the meaning that both application developers and plugin developers would benefit from this, because if you are a plugin developer, you would reuse some of the components of Rails, and if you are app developer, you also could use something from that. Better performance, of course, public API for plugins, ability to start with small core version and then include other parts if you don't want to start with everything. Better ORM support, better support for rack, and some other features from MERB, which was not pointed out. So I think that it might that he might wanted to do engines or parts or something like that. So let's check how it looks like at present, how it looks like in Rails 3 point something. And I will start with modularity, because it was both first on the list, and I'm interested the most at this part of Rails, because I think that is the best benefit of the rewrite. And I will tell you about abstract controller, which I guess Nick knows very well, but I will tell about it in a moment. So abstract controller is a class that is base class, that is superclass for controllers and action mailer, and it kind of abstracts some basic stuff and like mostly actions and processing support. So if you have abstract controller alone, you can't do much with it. Like you can for example create my controller that inherits from abstract controller, and you can process some action, but it's kind of not really different from just calling this index method. So what's the point of having some process method or some hierarchy or something like that? The nice thing about this is that there is a nice modularity in here, and we can take abstract controller and include some modules that extend it. So here we have my controller that inherits from abstract controller, and we include abstract controller rendering. We append view path current directory, so it will render views from current directory. And we have action index that just renders. And if you run my controller new.process, it will try to render my /index view. And this is just a few lines of code. And before Rails 3, you would have to do a lot of things to do something like that. So, and I have a question: who does not know how this modularity thing that you have base class and include modules work? Okay, so I guess that everybody knows that. Everybody knows that, so I will just skip this slide. And rendering alone is not so nice, so we can add more things, like for example layouts. So one line later, actually 2 lines, I include abstract controller layouts, and I say that layouts should be application, render, and it will try to render my /index with application layout. So I don't know, like 10 lines of code, and we have rendering with layouts, and maybe we'll add a few more lines, and we'll have helpers. Like I just included abstract controller helpers, and here we have render inline. Render inline is just rendering something that I pass as a string as it was template. So I use ERB there. I use helper foo, which is defined at the bottom, and it will just render this foo helper. So with class that inherits from abstract controller, a few includes and a few other methods, and we have working example of controller with layouts, with views, with helpers that can be used outside of Rails or outside of rendering stack and outside of HTTP stack and so on. And of course, you can include more cool things like I showed helpers already, and you can use URL4, callbacks, logger, and more other things, and you can implement your own stuff. So you can do really cool things with this. And I'm sure that, I know that it's more for plugin developers like Nick, who after Rails 3 was released, he could just stop hacking everything in Rails and just use these simple lines of code. But I remember at least 2 situations when I needed to render views and layouts outside HTTP stack, and it was in the time of Rails 2. So I just took tilt, I implemented helper support, I implemented layout support, I implemented some other things, and it was a lot of code, a lot of work, which could be done in 10 lines of code. And now something closer to app development. Action controller metal, it's the thing that inherits from abstract controller. So you get all those things. You can get all those nice things as well, but it adds HTTP support. So now you can. It's something like action controller base inherits from action controller metal. So it has some of this functionality, but action controller base adds a lot more. So basic version of action controller metal can render things You can set content type, you can set response body, you could set status as well. And here I need to, because action controller metal usually sits behind the router. So to make it work standalone, you have to call it with some environment, something like rack environment. And I did some hack to pass action that I need action index. So you can just copy the snippet and run and see that it will work. And as you can see, it's rendered rack response. So you know now that controllers are action controller metal is valid rack endpoint. And you can also use this in your application. For example, if you want to make API and you don't want a lot of things that action controller base includes. So we can make something like custom controllers. You can include only stuff that you need. It's faster because it does not have a lot of things that action controller base have. Yeah, and you can include only what you need. So and now the question is what you can include. And a lot of people seems to think that it's some kind of magic, but implementation of this is really simple. So you can just open action controller base and see a list of modules that are included. So we have things like, I don't know, first SSL, cookies, I don't know, caching, redirecting and other stuff. So if you don't need some of those things, you can make your own controller stacks that are faster because they don't do things that you don't need. And you have also, in the topic of modularity, you have also some other nice things like active model, responders, with which you can modify how Rails responds, how Rails responds without actually changing code in all controllers. You can just insert some responders and modify all of the responses. You can use template resolvers, so you can, for example, get the templates from database instead of getting them from file system, and to get all those nice things like template caching and all the other stuff. For example, if you look at Radiant code from Rails 2 point something, you will see that they did a lot of effort to copy getting templates, to copy templating system, but to get templates from database. Now with Rails 3, it would be really easy to do it without making a lot of hacks and a lot of lines of code. Or you can easily add template handlers, so you can render different formats if you need to. And the next point from that list, so I will just sum up some things from modularity. So now with Rails 3, you can reuse some of the components that are prepared in Rails. And of course, it's not targeted at most of the developers. But if you have some apps that are not regular, that need some specific features, and you need something that does not fit in standard model view controller, you can use those things and customize Rails as you want. So next point, like now there will be some points that are not so interesting, and probably some of them are really well known already. So I will just go through it quickly. So it was one of the points was better performance. And I did some rough benchmarks. It's not scientific, so don't believe it, but it shows kind of differences, nice improvements. If you take Rails 2.3 and Rails 3.2 with a simple view and layout, and you will render it, you will get around 260 requests per second on Rails 2.3 and Rails 3.2 over 700 requests per second. And of course, it's not as fast as Sinatra, and probably it's not so fast as Merb was, but I guess that it does not matter so much, because most of the time you don't need this rough performance, and database calls and other stuff took more time than simple going through the stack. Yeah, but still nice improvement. And boot time was thing that was really horrible on 192, because of require bug, but it's not horrible anymore. I checked 2.3 application and it's almost a second. And if you take 3.2 application on Ruby 193, you will get 0.6 seconds, which is kind of nice for framework with all the stuff Rails has. And of course, if you have a big application with a lot of controllers, models, and helpers, it will take more to load. But yeah, it's not entirely Rails' fault if your application loads slowly. And if you use perf patches, it's even faster, 0.5 seconds. There was also a thing about public API for plugins, and probably it's not so good as in MERP because we don't have a real distinction of which functions you should use in plugins or which you should avoid. But most of the time it's easy to see which classes are kind of internal and which are not. And you have some kind of concepts, abstracts to help you chain into Rails initializing, configuration, and so on. So you have rail ties that you can use to configure Rails from a plugin. You have initializers that you can use to load your code or, for example, modify the way Rails loads. You have active support instrumentation that you can use to get performance data and much more things that you can now use so you don't have to rely on some internal methods you have a better chance that your plugin will not break with next release. Like, it can break still, but the situation is a lot better. There was also a point about starting with small core version and that you can use to include other modules later. And actually, I don't think that in Rails it's so important because if you use Rails, you probably not aim at Sinatra-like application, but you can totally do one file application under this gist. I will post this presentation later so you can see it. Under this gist is Joseph Valim's simple one file application. So we can totally do it. I'm not sure if it's really needed for Rails, but if you want, you can go on with it. And there's of course better support. We all know this. Generators, active model. Embracing crack. Now almost everything is in middlewares in Rails HTTP stack, which actually turns out that it's not so good thing because if you have a lot of the point of using middlewares is that you can reuse them in other applications and stuff like that. And in Rails, it's like a lot of internal stuff that you will not use in other frameworks. So it's just making it slow because you need to go through the stack of, I don't know, 20 or 25 or 30 middlewares. So I think that it will be refactored before Rails 4.0 because embracing crack is good, but I think right now Rails are abusing it. And the question is, was there a right big file? And if you look just in terms of features that development stalled for some time, and like features for majority of developers, you probably can say that it's a big file. But if you aim at experienced developers, plugin developers, and basically the speed of developing framework, I think that was not fail at all. So let's see some accusations that are thrown at Rails. And actually, it's funny because Nick was talking about respect, and when you see those things, you kind of see any respect. Like people are just taking Rails and they do not do any research. They just take some things for granted, and they don't even get like 10 minutes to check if they are right or wrong, and before writing some runs. So like Jeremy Ashkenaz said that when Rails was written, all forward progress stalled for nearly 2 years. It's still slower in many ways than Rails 2, and Bundler is a nightmare. So Bundler, I don't know, you can like Bundler or not. I liked it. I like it because I remember situations where you took a Rails application from 2.3 and you needed to spend like half an hour just installing gems because nothing worked. And I'm not sure what did he mean by that it's still slower, because I don't know, maybe he was talking just about boot time on Rails 1.9.2, but I'm not sure. Probably he didn't even checked if it's really slower or not. And again, about this forward progress, I think that, yeah, if you aim at beginners, probably it's true, but if you aim at experienced developers that need some specific things, it's entirely not true. And another accusation is that my application looked the same as 3.0, a bit different API, but the same features. And I would say that if you say that, your application probably is simple and you don't need all those internal stuff, and you could probably use any framework out there. And yeah, so you have just simple application, and you could as well use something simpler. And this one is good. Nobody knows how to use custom controller stacks or other 3.0 advanced features. And seriously, like, some people are blogging about it for 2 years now. Like, I was writing blog posts about that 2 years ago after 3.0 came out. And Joseph Alim wrote entire book on this topic, crafting Rails applications. And if you want to know more about Rails internals, you should totally buy it. And you have you can just look at the code because it's so easy now to read the code. And even if you don't want to do any of this stuff, you can just ask someone from core team, and probably they will help you. So, sorry?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. You can ask me, I will help you, for sure. Yeah, but Nick was writing cells, and Yehuda helped him with new internal stuff, and I think that he was really interested in helping people understand it, because he was really oh my god. He really liked the rewrite, and he was really he was really passionate. I was looking for the word. He was really passionate about entire rewrite. So I guess he would help anyone who asked him, and Joseph Alim as well, who asked him about some kind of internal things in Rails. And yeah, this one is also good. Rails is not leader in web development anymore, and I don't like such things because nobody's telling some specifics. Like, what does it mean that it's not leader? What should it do to be a leader again? Like, if you hear some guy saying something like that, or if you say that yourself, please give more specifics. If you have an idea, tell about it. Make a plugin and convince people to use it. And even if it will not end up in the core, in Rails core, if people like it, they will use it, and everyone will benefit from it. But just saying that that Rails is not good anymore without any ideas or specifics on what should be changed is just like, I don't know, shitty thing to do. And I want to tell also about a few words about the future. So the next release have a major version bumped, and it's all right now is mostly because it will support 1.9.3 only, but removing support for it is not a great feature to add. So I guess that there will be more things coming in the next months, and there is no real plan right now. So I will just try to predict something based on discussions right now and direction that Rails is going. I think that it will need better mass assignment protection. Yeah, but this situation also was really bad. But it was not really bad because Rails was insecure. Because like it was bad because Rails was insecure, and if it was up to me, I would tell to make it secure even before. And I was using a Terra accessible nil in my applications to ensure it. But the point is that suddenly a lot of people started going into Rails and into Rails issues, commit and saying some nasty stuff. And it's really easy to yell at people that devote their time to open source. And open source is not easy. So of course it's fail to do something like that. And it's it's not good thing. But if you don't do anything with open source and you just go there and yell at people who devote their time, so you can have tools to work with, it's not very good thing. So right now there is a patch that ensures this mass assignment protection at model level, but some people say, and I agree with them, that it should be on controller level and that this should not belong to model. So maybe something like mer params protection will be merged to Rails. Actually, Yehuda wanted to merge it a long time ago, but I think that there were some discussions about it, but finally it didn't make it to Rails. So, but maybe right now it will be better. And probably some automation, because if you have a form and you specify fields that are on that form, we can already guess what can be changed by that form, and ensure that if someone changes that form and adds some file like I don't know, user ID or something like that, we can just prevent saving that passing that in a controller. And some other things that will probably make it into Rails 4 is lowering entry barrier, because there is a lot of talk that Rails is not good for beginners anymore. And I don't know if I agree, because I'm not a beginner, so it's hard to look at Rails from beginner perspective. But if people are saying so, probably some beginners, I guess it will be worth looking at. Also, we have a strong movement to thin server-side application and fat clients. So I guess there will be some movement towards easier API creation. And in Rails 3.2, there was added streaming support, but it's not really user-friendly. It's kind of internal thing still. So if you want, you can use it, but it's not really polished yet. So I guess that there will be more support added to it. And of course, the thing that I told you about already, refactoring crack support. As Aaron Patterson told on his keynote, Rails are probably abusing crack right now, so we want to fix that situation. So in summary, I want to ask everyone who is ranting about Rails for some respect, as Nick asked you already in his keynote. And if you see something that's wrong, try to respect the view of other people. Try to not yell at people that devote their time. Like Joseph Alim was spending half an hour or an hour daily to just check issues and pull requests. And now when he said that he will not do it anymore for some time, you can see that issues are growing, that issues number in Rails is growing really fast. So nobody seems noticing it, but when it's gone, then you think, oh, okay, so maybe we should not be so disrespectful, and maybe we should make some nicer discussions. And also try to check Rails internals, because it's really nice thing. And if you haven't checked it already, I think that it can really help you developing applications if you have some not regular stuff. And basically that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't have time for questions, or?
If you make it quick, sure.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Maybe there's none. Okay.
So the question is I think the key for Rails, Rails is complete in my opinion, and it should get more modular, both on the controller level and on the modules and stuff. So because future pushes to Rails should be gems, additional gems. So you can just use, for example, action view should be a gem as well. So you can use just modules of Rails, and I think that's the key for Rails in the future. They should get more modular.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of stuff in the core, still in the core, and maybe that's one of the solutions to make it better.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Like this started after rewriting Rails to 3.0, but yeah, I think that's idea worth pursuing. Yep.
So one of the criticisms that I hear about Rails is basically that it's still stuck in this concept of server-side template rendering. And is there going to be a push towards towards like backbone-ish type style applications?
Yeah. So like in Rails 3.2 there is asset pipeline stuff, which I like. I like the concept, but I don't like implementation and execution of it. So I guess that it will be polished and it will be better in Rails 4 to lower, to make some problems disappear and to make it faster for sure, because like compiling all the assets is really slow right now. And yeah, so like for example, Yehuda Katz is experimenting with Ember, and I know that he uses asset pipeline to handle handlebars templates in it. So you can use it for it right now, but obviously we'll try to make it better in 4.0 to make it even easier to, for example, so for example, testing JavaScript is really bad thing right now because there's no convention over configuration, so everybody's taking some JavaScript plugins and everybody do their own stuff. Like there's no middle ground. And I think that this is thing that is worth pursuing. Also, that you can use tests for backbone easier, and as you said, templates and such stuff. So yeah, I think that's also a goal of for templates for release. Yep.
This is basically related to that. Last week, Yehuda committed a Rails guide that outlines his plans for API-only applications. And there, you can generate a new Rails application and pass this parameter, and it will generate a custom controller stack that's basically designed to serve JSON and nothing else. It does this exact stuff that he demonstrated with building your own custom controller by only including certain modules and stuff. And it's going to be designed for using Rails as a backend for client-side heavy JavaScript applications. So that will be coming in Rails 4. None of it is implemented, but it's a really neat guide to go read and see what his plans are for moving forward.
So actually there's this config middleware API only thing in the last week. So if you use it, it will remove some of the middlewares that are not needed in API only applications that are used only for views. Like I don't remember exact middlewares, but you can look at the code. Yeah, so that's also the thing that will be probably done.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
About the mass assignment. I mean,
yeah.
Instead of doing it in controllers and models, has there been consideration to do it, like for example in Django, you separate models from forms, and then forms are classes, and then all the mass assignment is done in the forms. And so, has there been a consideration to maybe switch how? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. You should ask, I don't know, Yehuda or DHH or Jerusalem or someone like that. I'm not sure. Probably not sure. Right. Like I didn't hear such discussions anywhere near the core. So I saw some comments on the gist made by Yehuda Katz with his proposal. But I'm not sure if anyone wants to implement it. But yeah, probably I will take a look.
Okay, haters gonna hate. I mean, you're speaking about future of Rails, but in my opinion, the era of monolithic applications, web applications, is over. And Rails in current shape has no future at all. Sorry, monolithic applications doesn't scale. They are not maintainable. They are hard to write, they are hard to deploy, they are not to scale. In my opinion, only distributed web services are future of web. In current shape, it's a little bit hard. We are in the middle of total bullshit and things going up around. But I hope in 2 months, maybe in a year, it will clarify. And only APIs count.
But I'm not sure why you say that you can't use Rails for APIs. Like there's a lot of things that you can use Sinatra for APIs, but Rails has some nice stuff Yeah, like take a look at this guide that Yehuda posted. It nicely sums up things that are added to Rails that can help you with API development. So yeah, like you can use other frameworks to develop APIs, but I'm not sure why you can't use Rails to do that.
Because Rails is very good used only on server-side code. It introduces asset pipeline which are very hard to use.
But if you have API, you don't need asset pipeline. You just disable it. Like I know that it's
okay. I'm calling asset pipeline all that bullshit around our JavaScript which has been added with all the things it generates magically. Also, what I mean is that Rails was basically focused on very basic development at the beginning. That you can hop, start writing the code and see results very quickly, which was like very pressured by startup companies trying to do stuff very fast. Now it isn't anymore because it's hard to having Rails application now. It's hard to just run Rails generate or Rails command and Rails new and start coding is very fast.
I hate to interrupt
yeah,
you.
but
I
we
think
can
this
finish
discussion
this.
can go whole
We
day.
can move it to a fight.
Yes.
We can discuss at the evening. So yeah, I will not take much more time. So yeah.
Okay, so please, a big applause.